Hi everyone, welcome back to The Change Person. And we always so excited. And just like even the call is confirmed with me and in agreement with me. We are excited. And this time, our guest is Daryl. Daryl is the founder of Awesome Ministry.
Yes.
Yes. And I'm so glad to have you here. And then I heard your testimony a few times. That's amazing. And that's why I would like to ask you the first thing. And not the part you become Christian, but the part before. Do you ever in your life you are not a Christian?
Well, actually, when I was a child, I was really close to God, and God was really important to me, and I could feel God's presence a lot. But then when I was a teenager and my family was kind of falling apart, and when I was a young adult, I just felt like, well, God was for when I was a child. And, you have to mature and get older and you have to face reality. And God was for then, but maybe not now. So I really strayed from God.
Oh, so when you strayed from God, and then what is the turning point to bring you back to Him?
I think it was just a lot of unhappiness in my life, and that my marriage was falling apart, and I was just so desperately unhappy, and I just had no peace about anything. I mean, we had everything we possibly could want because we both had good jobs. We were a professional couple, but there was just no joy in my life or, happiness.
So when when your childhood, you loved the Lord, what made you to stray away? Is it just like so many people say, oh, teenager, it's like that?
No, it was my family of origin. My parents, my father was in business for himself, and he was really struggling because financially they just could not make it. And he really wasn't what I would call a good businessman, but I think his father had always told him, well, you have to own your own business. And I think he was trying to live up to his father's expectations. My grandfather, who is a very stern man and a very kind of greedy man. And my father was trying to really find his father's acceptance. And unfortunately, it took a toll on the family. My mother had a lot of anxiety. She struggled a lot emotionally. She really wasn't present. And you could feel the whole tension in the household. Yeah. And it was just very unhappy.
Yeah. And that is what I recently, because we have the youth group, we also come across talking about some topic is don't ever make the kid thinking they needed to earn that acceptance.
Right.
And they don't need to prove and show you I am deserved for your love. That is very damage of their personality or their life.
Right.
And so when you have experienced that, what made you become from a loving God person to become follow their path or what?
Well, I think I thought at the time, I was a teenager, I thought at the time, and I did not like school, even though I was very good at school and I excelled in school, but I didn't like school because I felt like I didn't really fit in. I knew what I could do to fit in, but that always seemed kind of stupid to me. So I was kind of a loner, and that also made me unhappy. But, okay, what was the question again, Corey? I think I lost track.
It's okay. The question is, when you from loving God,
right?
After you stray away from God, what kind of person you become?
Oh, okay, that's a good question. Yeah. So a lot of what caused me to stray was the realization that God wasn't fixing things on my time schedule. He wasn't making it, I would ask for his help, but it just seemed like he wasn't helping me, and I just really kind of turned more to the world. Not that I got into drugs or alcohol. I just got into just doing whatever I wanted. Accumulating good possessions. John and I were married. I thought we would be happy, but he was always working. When he wasn't working, he was drinking. And I had a couple affairs. I mean, on the outside, we looked really good. We had a good job. We had nice cars. We had a nice place, but it didn't bring the happiness that I thought it did.
Because that empty void is, from having Jesus is
right.
Now is just, without him inside.
Right. It was like a void. Yeah. And I believe it was God working in my life, really drawing me back to him. And then one of my coworkers, he and I had actually had an affair, his life had turned around and he became a Christian. And he started talking to me about God and talking to me about the Bible. And it made me so angry because I actually knew the Bible better than he did. I mean, because I grew up in a Christian school and everything. So I had a good Bible background and it just made me so angry. But it was also God working in my life, bringing me back.
In a moment, do you have the same thought? It sounds like so stupid. but when he do that, reminded you about, hey, I know all this thing.
Sure.
But then how can you overcome the exact reason? Okay, God don't help me. But now how can you overcome that and going back to God?
Because I tried everything else. When you try everything else, eventually you think, well, maybe I should go back to God. I wasn't that stupid,
No, you are
I may
not.
have been a slow learner at that point in time. I may have been a slow learner when it comes to God, but I did go back to him.
Yeah, but it's sometimes I think God gives us grace because he know that the fantasy of the world is quite easy. We are weak.
Absolutely. And God allows it in our lives because he wants us back, he wants us back because he loves us. And sometimes we just aren't going to go back until we experience the emptiness and the hurt and the pain. Pain is a great motivator. Yeah. I've learned that.
Yeah. Many people say when you're going bad time, you will close to God, then you're good time, right?
Right.
So, but when we experience bad time and we went back to God, and when good time come, we will not laugh.
Right.
Yeah. So, and when you finally go back to God, and then what is your life changing right that moment?
Well, what I did is I realized that our marriage isn't really what God wanted. I did realize that because my husband was always working, and when he wasn't working, he was drinking. My life was a mess.
Was he Christian when the time?
He was like me. He grew up in the church, but we both were, kind of strayed and did our own things, So it's really hard to say. Were we Christians? I don't really know. Probably. But we had strayed and God had a way of bringing us back.
Amen.
Yeah.
So, what you become after you come back, how the changing started to?
Okay. Well, what I did is I told my husband I was going to leave him, and that got his attention because he did not want me to leave, and all the times I was telling him how unhappy I was, it's like, he'd say things like, well, I'm doing all this for you. And inside my head, I'm thinking, if you're doing all this for me, why don't I feel better about it? So, but when I told him I was going to leave him, that got his attention and he said he was going to change. And what it did is it brought John to a crossroads. And a lot of times when we come to a crossroads, you see who an individual is. What are they going to choose? What are they going to do? Which path are they going to go on? And John said he was going to change, and he said, I'm going to go back to God. We are going to go back to God. So, of course, I didn't believe that because I didn't really respect him at that time or trust him. But what I found out is that my husband really was a responsible person. And when he said he was going to change, he really did. And we went back to church. We got involved in a small group. It was a business and it was a large TV church. We got involved in a business and professional class. So we had very good mentors there. We had to change all of our priorities because really our priorities was a lot of materialism, you know.
That is exactly what God said. If you love money, you cannot love God.
Exactly. So we changed all of our priorities. We learned how to be more honest in the way we communicated. We learned to listen. We learned and had to work on forgiveness. I had to work on a lot of my anger and hurt and frustration. And John had to work on really being there more for me and being supportive and listening and really listening to what I was saying. So we really struggled the first year. I mean, it wasn't all happiness, cupcakes and unicorns and
not an overnight thing.
No, it was not an overnight thing at all. The first year I thought, is this even going to go anywhere? But I wanted to see what God could do, and I thought, I'm not going to serve a God that can't change me. I'm not going to serve a God that doesn't work in my life. I want a God to work in my life and to change me and to change our relationship. And the first year was really hard. The second year was better, and every year has been better since then. Now, our lives are not perfect. We still have struggles. We still have conflict. We still have arguments, we still disagree on things, but we are committed to God. We are committed to one another.
Thank God.
We learned a lot about the healing process, how to heal from the past, how God works in our lives emotionally. We just learned a lot. We did not seek help, which I think was kind of stupid on our part. It never occurred to us, but I think it's what God wanted because kind of we learned on our own.
Yes, I agree. And then I can see how John really loves you. Yeah, so that he can and have that strength to turn himself around.
Right.
And the second thing I heard you about is the first time, okay, God, I don't think you can do anything. I turn, but this time you learned the lesson.
Yes.
I give you time enough. I give you more enough time, more than a year, and to really to have the patience to see God timing and working. I know God sometimes He works. It's not the circumstance. It's our heart first.
Absolutely. I feel like it's always our hearts first because that's what matters to God.
Amen. And then I also, and so good to hear that, and because what the path and the path may be aim for evil, but God aim for good. All that you learn so that today you can help a lot of people. Yeah. So what is, what exactly to start it to bring you and John to say, okay, we need to go to do that ministry?
We just felt that God wanted us in ministry. We didn't exactly know what kind of ministry, but we both went back to school. I went to school first, and then John went back to school. And when he was in school, I taught. And we thought it would be more of a couples ministry, truthfully. But what we found out when we started our own ministry, and the reason we moved, because we were living in Charlotte, and the reason we moved here is John had a family home because he was raised in East Palestine. So John had a family home here, and that's why we moved here. And I did not want to move here because I'm a city person. I like Charlotte.
I fully understand.
They had public transportation.
I love that. Yeah.
And I had a good job there, but we knew that God wanted us in ministry, and we knew this was the place. So, and I had learned that you don't try to change God's mind. You more go with what he wants.
Oh yeah, you can't change his mind.
No, you go with what he wants, and he changes your mind.
Yeah, I find out if we not learn to follow him, it means I keep bumping my head on the wall.
Yes, exactly. I learned that quickly.
Yeah, and also when you said about, hey, we still struggle. I believe Chile is a real person. How could not have that struggle or still learning until the day we die? I always say, God, you are everlasting. Even 100 years old is very baby to you. So, and then but now I know when you have struggle between, no matter in the ministry, in the marriage, or just a daily life, and you're handling with totally different than before, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, absolutely.
Is from the lesson, or you are just, okay, I believe that the Bible is will. There is so many practical way help me to take care of every situation.
Right. That is exactly right.
That's awesome. So when you sometimes you receive some of the different. Hey, actually, I want to ask, what is the ministry and the helping in what? I don't like that word category, but yeah, what is your focus?
Okay, our focus is, Ozer means helper in Hebrew. So that's what it means. It's helper. Initially, we thought we would be more of a couples ministry, and we do see a lot of couples. However, practically from the beginning, pastors began to refer women to me, and women that were really struggling emotionally. And what I found out is pretty early on, almost immediately, I began to see women that were adult survivors of childhood sexual abuse or some kind of abuse. And because I understood the healing process and what you needed to do to heal, I just understood more about trauma. I just understood trauma because I felt like I had a lot of trauma in my life, even though it wasn't really abuse. It was just a lot of fear and a lot of uncertainty and a lot of, oh my gosh, are we going to have enough food? That kind of stuff. Fear. So, I just applied it, and that's how I started working with trauma. And then one of my clients said to me, probably about 15 years ago, Daryl, why don't you apply for contracts with Job and Family Services? You're really good at this. And that never occurred to me. So then I have contracts, and I work a lot with domestic violence and other kinds of trauma. So, and then we still see couples and teenagers and that.
Yeah, I really, I don't know why, but I know in my heart, we might not all the time can get together, know each other more, but I just know in my heart, and I am so confident if I heard someone, they need the counseling, I know I can refer to you because I just have the feeling that, and very strong, you are so understandable people, the need, and even their deeper hearts. But I want to ask you one question. Before you are very successful, either in the school or in when you having chasing after material, but now you have the ministry helping people. What brings you more joy and more satisfaction?
Oh, helping people. To me, when I was a little girl, what I remember, what made me happy, and this was when I was real little, is my father would read stories to me. So I liked stories. And I thought the best thing in the world is to hear people's stories.
Aww.
The best thing, because that's what matters to God. Our stories, who we are. So I always liked stories, you know, and that's what I find is the most rewarding.
So today, thank you. That's exactly what we are doing.
Yes, it's what you do.
Yeah, and then you are very good to share the. Your is a real life story, but when you share, is a really can capture the why I do this and how I do this. You're a very good storyteller. Mm-hmm. You know, it's I remember last time we had the breakfast.
Yes.
Oh, you speak. I met many people afterward. Different people ask me, oh, she is a very good speaker. She is very good I fully join to the story she said. That's why I think, okay, I need to invite her. But do you, when you walk through, is it sometimes some people will say, like, for example, when God asked me to write a book about his testimony, how my life changing. And in occasion, I say, God, you need to remind me all that past, then you need to walk me through. I might remember wrong because trauma, right? Mm-hmm. You will have emotion in it.
Yes.
And I say, God, you need to help me. I don't want to dwell into the same emotion, kind of pull myself out. Mm-hmm. And so I want to ask you, when you are helping the people mm-hmm. in those situations, somehow you will come across your past again.
Yes.
So do you
Always.
have that struggle also?
Or? Oh, occasionally. Yes, occasionally I do. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Then how you handle it?
Well, first of all, it's important to know how you feel. So I always try to figure out, why am I feeling this way? You know, what do I feel and why am I feeling this way? And then I always want God to show me the truth. Because mm-hmm. sometimes we believe things that are not true. Mm-hmm. You know?
And just like sometimes we say the feeling might be will, but it's not based on the truth.
Right. And I'll give you an example. For instance, let's just say as a child, I was laughed at a lot. Now, when I go into a room and there's a couple people laughing, probably the first thing I could think is they're laughing at me. Mm. And it might bring up a lot of anger or hurt. Mm-hmm. Now, those feelings are real. Anger and hurt. Mm-hmm. But it's telling me more about my past and how I was hurt in my past. The truth is, are they probably laughing at me? Probably not. Mm-hmm. But the feelings are helping me understand how I was hurt. Mm-hmm. So it's important to feel those feelings and understand why I'm feeling that, but also ask God to help me to process it.
Mm. And because you said, made me to think about is, you recognize there is the wound. Mm-hmm. And you recognize that need healing, mm-hmm. so that you can actually turn to the healer.
Yes.
Oh, that is awesome. So I want to ask, another thing is, I keep thinking, and you and John experienced a path, a rough path, and almost go to the point, I left you. And what made you to want to stay in the marriage?
I think because I was just committed to I grew up in a family where my father and mother were committed to each other. Mm. And even though they had a lot of struggle, they were committed to each other. They really did love one another. Mm-hmm. And I felt the same way. I was committed to my husband. And my husband, he grew up in a family where his parents were committed to one another. Wow. Yeah. So it's the commitment. Because a lot of times I felt like, you know, toward the end, we hated each other. We didn't respect one another. Mm-hmm. But I wanted to see if God could restore our feelings. And mm-hmm. He did, and He could. Mm-hmm.
So you take two very strong things and make me think first. Now we have a lot of the percentage that people say divorce is very high, mm-hmm. and so many that happen. They involve children. Mm-hmm. And sometimes I will be very struggle to see them happen, because that will be the first impact is mm-hmm. the children.
Right.
And we are not consider them. We are not consider, like you say, the commitment. And we just take it very lightly. Not good, then done. And so I think mm-hmm. that is so awesome. You said that.
Yes.
To a parent committed into a marriage, how much impact.
Yes.
To the
now,
children.
What I find is both individuals have to be committed, because sometimes one is committed and the other is not. Mm-hmm. And a lot of times that will not work very well, because mm-hmm. then one person is kind of carrying the relationship.
You're right.
But both people have to be committed. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And like John and I were. Yeah. My parents were. My husband's parents were.
Mm. So when you hold on the commitment. The second thing I heard you say is, and you put your hope in God. It's not by, okay, how Daryl and John will have their wisdom and we can make it full. No, but you both turn to God, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, with our whole hearts. Our lives were a mess. We knew they were a mess.
So, and then now you and John, the marriage relationship, what it looked like compared with long time ago. How many years you married now?
50. Let's see. We got married in 67. So I guess it will be in September. It will be 57 years.
Wow. So
that's a little scary.
No. Even though now, even you say sometimes you still argue, but my husband in the Facebook page he showed me sometimes the husband and wife just but it's so sweet. Mm-hmm. Is it so? You and John, and what is your status now?
Oh, our status now is, I always see us as like a team of workhorses where we're working together, and we each have our own goals sometimes, but we're working together. We work well together. Wow. Now, around the house doing projects, we do not work well together. But working in the ministry, we work well together. Awesome. And our status now is we still have, disagreements, mm-hmm. but we always talk things over. Mm-hmm. We ask for God's direction, mm-hmm. and we respect one another.
Mm-hmm. That's awesome.
And I am the person I am because of John.
That is
because he supported me, mm-hmm. and he listened to me. And he validated me.
Yeah. And so now you and John I would say, is not just husband and wife, it's a life partner. Mm-hmm. Just like I always say, my husband and I, either he is Simon, I'm Jesus, or I am Simon, he's Jesus. We carry the cause for each other. And I believe you and John in the same way. Mm-hmm. And so now, if someone, and they experience a marriage difficulty, mm-hmm. and may not the same situation.
Right.
But what kind of the advice you can give them, and that can help them to see more clear and help them to go through that process in God's ways? Well, I think some audience might want to know.
Okay, well, what I would do is I would say turn to God and ask for his help and direction. And if at all possible, seek wise counsel.
Christian counsel, right?
Sure, yeah. Or, even start with your pastor or someone that you feel like would be helpful. You start somewhere. Mm-hmm.
Amen. And the last thing is, the first time I saw you, because your haircut is so cool. And so I always have a question. I always have the thought, she must be not a traditional, but is a really, not religious Christian, right?
Right.
And to you, Christian is the sun set you free. You are truly free indeed.
Yes. Yes.
That is some kind of who you are, too?
Yes, because I don't think God really cares about our appearance or whatever,
Yeah, you're right. So, hey, everyone, thank you so much. You be with us. And I know time passed so fast, and especially we have a lot of fun conversation and fairy. And I hope that not only bring you hope and also bring you joy, and knowing that, like Daryl, you saw her. And this need to remember, the truth set you free, and that truth is the Lord Jesus Christ. And when he set you free, you are free indeed. So if you have any question, or maybe you think, I actually need Daryl ministry help me, a couple as a marriage situation or abusive situation or trauma situation, reach out. I will make sure connect you with her. So thank you so much, and see you next time.